she needs the microphone.
That's not really going to be practical. I have to show.
Okay, no, but we do it.
If you speak loudly, they can hear. If you can't hear, just wait.
Morning, everyone. So we're going to present a model of collaboration in the area of digestive cancer. We know it's exam time, but we thought we could still start with a small, easy quiz. Do any of you recognize one of these people?
I've seen a lot of French students here, so I think it's the right time to...
French people should at least recognize that one.
So?
No?
Nobody recognize the guy?
I'm sure you do. Come on. That's history.
Napoleon? Bonaparte? He died from the stomach cancer.
Okay, so do you recognize that one? Yeah, great. She died from colorectal cancer. Who's that one?
Yes.
Exactly. Colorectal cancer also. That one, I'm not sure she's so famous. She used to be an actress in a TV show, which is called Beloved Witch. Yeah. She died from colorectal cancer. That works.
That's a very famous
French singer. Yeah, I heard it. Georges Brassens. He died from colorectal cancer. This is an opera singer. Do you know him? Exactly. He died
from pancreatic cancer. And this one you know. All of you know.
Steve Jobs. And he died from neuroendocrine tumors. So they all died from digestive cancers. And we have many others anonymous people dying from digestive cancer every year. So a few numbers. Digestive cancers account for 25% of all cancer deaths. So what are digestive cancer? Just to begin with, there are esophagus cancer, stomach cancer, colorectal cancer, liver cancer, pancreatic cancer, and neuroendocrine tumors. Why do so many people die of digestive cancer? Because research is not really amazing. Why? Because we lack equipment, we lack funds, and nowadays we have only one digestive cancer which can be screened, and it's colorectal cancer, in 5 or 6 of them. There's no awareness about digestive cancer. We don't know the frequency of digestive cancer. For example, just these numbers, so there are more than 4 million deaths from digestive cancer, or 4 million digestive cancers diagnosed every year. And look at that, that was 2012 number. And that's when you look it up now. So that means in 2016 you can't have numbers more recent than 2012. And this lack of awareness and research leads to late diagnosis and treatment, which means you have unequal access to care, lots of treatment opportunities, because for example pancreatic cancer, when it's diagnosed, it's like 44 days later, so too late. So survival rate would be like 3 months, so you will die in 3 months if you're lucky. And we lack availability of appropriate drugs on the market, and that's on the global market. In France, in the United States, in the UK, it's even worse in the UK, everywhere. So now I'll let Maria present the foundation.
So from this, I'm one of the founders of this foundation, and that's the real story, is that I used to work for oncologists for many years, and I was a few years in New York City, and then I came back to Munich, and honestly Munich, for me, I hope we have no Germans in the room, but I get very, very annoying in Munich, and when I came back to Paris, I met again Professor Emery de Gramont. Probably you don't know him because you've never had digestive cancers in your life, fortunately. But he's very famous, and probably a lot of people knows him around the world because he was basically the father of the Folfox regimen. And the Folfox regimen was used, is right now still used in a lot of different countries, even emerging countries, to treat digestive cancer. So he was the founder of this famous regimen. So when I was back from Munich in Paris, after a few years abroad, I had a lunch with him, and I looked at him and I said, Emery, come on, I think now, after 20 years of very well-known publications and work and discoveries and research around the world, I think this is our time to create a foundation. The thing is that, as you know, most of you, France is a complicated country, and to create a publicly recognized foundation in France is extremely challenging. So we had that lunch, and I looked at him and I said, "Are you okay, or are you not okay?" He said, "Okay." So he's, as Ranjan was saying, the brain and the brain of this foundation. He's a very famous oncologist. And as I would say, almost a slave, I decided to implement the foundation because I'm a lawyer. So I think both of us were able to create that entity. So after a few months of hard work, we had both of us, we had this call for an urgent action to reduce the digestive cancer's mortality to 0. It doesn't mean that the aim of the foundation is to eradicate the digestive cancers, because even if we are very optimistic, there is no chance to eradicate this kind of cancer. It's more and more, the incidence is more and more important in the world. But the other challenge is to reduce the risk to die from this cancer, and to replace the mortality by almost chronic disease, which is a fundamental difference for the patients. So the foundation itself was recognized end of 2006, so we will have our 10th birthday since the creation next December. And as Marion explained to you, we are focusing, and this is very important because we are really recognized worldwide right now as a specialized foundation in digestive cancers. A lot of organizations treating cancers are not focused on a specific disease. They are mainly doing research in general, or they are focused on cancers. It can be breast cancer, brain cancer, or whatever, hematology and that kind of thing. So as Marion told you, the digestive cancers is basically whatever you have in the middle of your body, and with few organs: esophagus, stomach, liver, pancreas, colon, rectum. And here you have the two founders, rather old pictures, I have to say. Those pictures not very recent. And so Professor Henri de Gramont, he used to work in the Hôpital Saint-Antoine in Paris, and made this hospital very famous, and myself, and another NGO, because the foundation had to be created upon an existing NGO, which is the GERCOR, and the GERCOR was basically a clinical research institute, but focused on clinical trials. So what is the ethos of the foundation? Before explaining to you what we are doing, but we won't list all the programs because we are doing a lot, what was very important for Emery and I was to have this foundation oriented on the patient. The patient is the main actor of this entity. It's not the doctors creating clinical trials, it's to serve all digestive cancers patients. So it's more and more critical in research right now is the participation of the patient in the treatment decision. We are right now working, for example, on the new informed consent publication, because everybody who wants to participate in research and enter and participate in the clinical trials has to provide his own consent. Do you accept or do you not accept to participate in these trials? And this is very important, that the patient has to be extremely active and not passive. And on top of that, all patients are really contributing. It's like what Doctor you said before with the sex workers. The patient has now to contribute to the therapeutic advances. And they contribute because they are asking to participate in these clinical trials, and because if you do not fundamentally participate in the clinical trials, you do not receive the most recent strategies or treatments. So what is very important in that is that the patient of today is doing a job or has a real vocation and mission for the patients of tomorrow. So this is the principle of clinical research. So today, all this is very important because the therapeutic strategies and medical follow-up is more and more patterned to the individual patient. We are not doing research right now for thousands and thousands of patients because we know that it costs a lot of money and a lot of patients do not respond to the treatment. So right now, research is much more focused on individual treatment. Organization. So you can read. I wrote myself with the different ministries and the Conseil d'État, which is the highest administrative institution in France. So I decided to create a board of 10 trustees. And as a publicly recognized foundation, we are represented by a member of the French government, who is assisting all the boards. We have a multidisciplinary scientific committee because we were instructed as a research foundation. So the scientific committee is very important because it classifies and recommends the projects to the board. One of the core principles we implemented with Emery de Gramont is that from the beginning and up to now, after 10 years, 100% of the collected donations are really and effectively allocated to the programs. And we will explain to you how we do that. And the last thing to explain is that as a foundation we have a choice. We can run ourselves our programs, so that means that we choose the programs during the boards and the initiative comes from the board, or we can allocate fundings, which is mainly the way of conducting foundations in France, is to select programs and then you have somebody else, another NGO, conducting the program. The mission, very quickly, everything is written here. We provide better information and support to patients suffering from digestive cancers. Second, and this is the main active mission we have, is to improve patient care and clinical research. And also we try to make the general public and health workers sensitive and for the need of prevention and screening. The thing is that it's not our choice not to do that at most. The thing is that we don't have prevention tests in digestive cancers except for the colorectal cancer. So, our core principles, and I think it's very important because after the presentation I will maybe challenge you or what kind of advices you can provide us. What we decided also from the beginning is to have this foundation founded on a very strong spirit of collaboration. We don't want to be a single institution working on our own. We want to collaborate on the international basis. The term of loyalty for us is very important. Accountability, transparency, independence, and you'll see later that one of the aims of that foundation from this beginning was to be more and more independent from the pharmaceutical companies. We run a lot of programs in accordance with the wishes of our donors. I think it's very important to make this special relationship with donors. Is sometimes with corporate donors, we choose a program together and we run it together. It's a real collaboration. Also, we have the other opportunity for individuals who died or for example, one member of their family died from a specific digestive cancer. They can allocate fundings to the foundation and we make a commitment to allocate these fundings to a specific research, for example, in pancreatic cancer. And the last core principle was to have all our operational costs very controlled and to be very transparent with you. I'm executive secretary, so I belong to the board. And up to now, I was alone to run this foundation, on an everyday basis, with a lady that I hired 10 years ago, who is a widow and lost her husband when I met her in Germany. And Marion recently joined us. but it's really what we wanted to do, and in order to be able to allocate 100% was to have a very, very little amount of operational costs. Because I'm doing that work absolutely pro bono. Marion, your turn.
So I don't know how much you know about the research cycle. When we want to launch a medicine, for example, it usually goes through the pharmaceutical industry. Or that's what we all think. Well, actually, it really comes from the academic system. So we have the researcher working on some medicines, and then the pharmaceutical industry buy the medicine and test it. So there are a few ways to test a medicine or a treatment. First phase is that you test it on some animals, then it goes on to the human, and just 100, for example, and then onto 1,000 or several hundred human in oncology. So that's the clinical research, and we're doing clinical research. So Fondation ARCAD is the one funding the programs, the clinical research program, or running it, as Manuela said. But we can't really do that on our own, because you have to have an insurance, and it's really controlled. You have to take all the numbers, all the statistics from the patients, you have to follow them. So we're working with other NGOs. One is the ARCAD, so we call that a sponsor. That means he has the ability of conducting clinical research, so working with the doctors. And we're also working with academic drug development. It's academic cancer drug development, actually, which is also an NGO and a sponsor, which can run clinical research. And this NGO is working with ARCAD Foundation, which is a laboratory. Because you can't only have clinical research, you also have to test the medicine, as we said, on some animals. And this lab is doing that. So that's preclinical research or translational research, which is when you have all the data from the clinical research, then you combine all of them and you study other problematics. Like if you had a cancer, then we're going to dissect the tumor. We're going to take a part of the brain where the tumor is, and then we'll study it afterwards, like 5 years later. And that's translational research. So with all these, we call that galaxy, we have the ability to run the whole research cycle. So from the beginning, with the animals, to the human, to the translational parts. So that way we can have all the aspects of the research. And that means we could also even one day develop treatments and medicines, maybe. With who do we work? We work with the health authorities, of course. We work with all the drug companies all over the world. We work with academics, which means doctors, specialists, that can be oncologists, surgeons, all the specialists you have in the digestive area. That can also be gastrointestinal doctors. So these academics are also the experts. And we also work with patients, because that's important for us to know what they need and what they want and what they expect from us. So how do we fund all of this? Our resources. Well, first of all, and that's the main thing, most important thing for us, we rely on a really big network of expertise, which means we work with doctors all over the world, the best ones, key opinion leaders, and they do that for free. And that's what we call the volunteer work of both national and international key opinion leaders. That means all the doctors who work with us, they do that on their free time. So, for example, we're writing books for the patients to enable them to know more about the disease and all the possible treatments. And the doctors do that on their free time, and that's led us to be able to give the books for free. And all the research that they're working on, for example, when they're writing the protocol, they also do that for free, which is a lot, because the pharmaceutical industry could pay them just for a board that would be 10,000 euros. So for them, it's really an act of willingness to help the patients. But that's the free work. We also have corporate and individual donations, which mean each one of you could give us money. It can be 10 euros, but it can also be 30,000 if you have that. And we have corporate donations. So that means the industry, but not only the pharmaceutical industry, because we wanted to keep our independence, so we accepted donations from all the different industries or all the different companies which wanted to help us. So we also, obviously Marianne is going to present them. We have pharmaceutical industries, but we also have BNP Paribas, for example, banks, small NGOs giving us money, all that. And we have in-kind donations, which is, for example, a corporate or a company which would like to give us the money for the press, for example, for a press campaign. They can't do it directly, so they pay for the press campaign for us. So we don't really have the money, but they do it for us. They pay for us.
Is YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will introduce this video just seconds, because Dr. Daniel Sargent is a person who died, unfortunately, last September. He was one of my major collaborators on a very specific international program. He was probably the best biostatistician in the world, working for the Mayo Clinic in the United States. So I think this video, which is very short, 1 minute and 30 seconds, is explaining the famous program, the main program that Marion will talk about later. And it's kind of an homage for me to honor him today and have him talking. He was 46 years old.
And that's presenting the whole volunteer work, because all he was doing while he was working with all these doctors who were working for free.
Individual countries would run their trials. In the United States, we ran a trial of 2,500 patients. In Italy, they ran a trial of 3,000 patients. And in fact, 6 different trials around the world were conducted, each spanning from 1,000 to 4,000 patients. We agreed prospectively to pool all this data together for a single joint analysis worldwide. And as of November of last year, all of the trials have completed, and we have enrolled over 12,500 patients to answer this question. The data should be available within 6 months to a year from now. And what this is an example of is worldwide collaboration to answer a question no one could answer alone. It's an example of global data sharing because everyone, all these trials agreed to pool their data together, and it really sets a new paradigm for how we can address questions in both trials that need to be very large, but also critically in trials of rare subtypes. Because again, if you have a rare subtype of disease, you may not have enough patients in one country to answer that question. And by working together as an international community, we can pursue these kind of very ambitious goals, but still achieve them that no one country could do on their own.
So after the resources, I was very happy that you could hear Dan, because Dan was explaining very well how much to be stronger together we are doing a better job. So this is an example of our International Scientific Committee. I'm sure you don't know all these guys because they are KOL in oncology. But this is just to show you how much our collaboration is worldwide. We work a lot with a lot of different, all countries in Europe, but also with Australians, Brazil, Canada, USA of course, and this is, we have a lot of investigators coming from the US. So this is a main group, and each time we can create a program, except if it's of course a specifically French action, but each time we can launch an idea, we try to have this international committee to participate in the development of this idea and this project, and it comes automatically because all these people are so well known in their own country that it's a fantastic empowerment for us to conduct our international initiatives. And the next slide is to show you the diversity of our sponsors. As Marion told you before, we wanted from the beginning to have this foundation mainly independent from the pharmas, and you will easily understand why, because our experts don't want to be prescriptors. They want also to have their own initiative and academic initiatives. And this is very interesting to show you that in this list, probably some of you know some of them, Areva, for example. But we have small, medium-sized companies. We have pharmas, of course. We have NGO like La Ligue contre le cancer, thank you. Or we have bankers, the Rothschild Bank, the BNP Paribas. We have also a very famous architect, which is Jean-Michel Pivot at the end. So, and a lot, of course, we have a lot of individuals participating. So Marion will talk to you if we have enough time, but not too much in details about this famous international program we are running right now with a database. I don't know if some of you are working on health data, but this is a typical instrument, so how we can improve research with less money and doing less clinical trials, because we, as Dan Surgeon was explaining, we can make findings and accelerate the research, because we don't need to run all these very expensive clinical trials to propose new treatments to the patients.
Okay, so actually the video you saw was about that program. That's an international program which is based on the volunteer work of these international doctors. The idea was to create a whole global database which would enable us to, with all the data combined, lead to studies we were not able to do with just 100 patients. So the idea was, with that database, we could shorten timelines to access treatment, reduce cost, and deliver new drugs. I think the only thing you need to retain, to remember about this program is that, well, that was a really successful one. We now have more than 33,000 patients. That's 42 databases. That means we had both academic and industrial databases. So that means also the industry gave us all their resources. And that wasn't an easy thing to do, because that's their secret for them. Because on the database, they're testing all their drugs, all their medicines. So that was a really hard work that Mariana achieved. And now we have this whole global database, which led us to 1 letter, 8 peer-reviewed papers, and 11 conference abstracts. I'm sure it's kind of blurry for you, but that means we had, for example, 11 recommendations of treatments that were tested thanks to that database, which is huge. I think now we could talk about the example of one doctor participating in the database. We just had this yesterday. That was an email Marina received about one paper on prior primary tumor resection, which is going to be submitted to the Journal of Clinical Oncology, which is a high-ranked journal of medicine for oncology. And he said, "Congratulations for this important manuscript. This is a very important piece of science that will immediately translate it to clinical practice." Just to show you an example of how, thanks to the database, medicine is advancing.
Wow. So,
Maybe we should keep the questions for later.
sorry?
We'll keep the questions for later. So maybe.
Yeah, but I can introduce, because now we have talked too much. I think that would be very interesting that you become stakeholders, kind of, on this foundation. So I have put all these challenges on this last slide, and I think we would be more than happy getting your advices. Ranjan recommended me to create another advisory committee. That would be you. So these are the challenges we have probably for the next years. So the first one is how to promote the public image and visibility of the foundation, because I have to tell you that from the beginning, we made that promise, Emery and myself. We didn't want to spend money on publicity or whatever. We wanted that foundation to be known, because